Okay, so the reason why your prospects are not turning into client, the reason why they're not buying has nothing to do with the money. So today that's what we're going to discuss. The secret of selling is actually not about the money at all. So the reason why the people are not buying is because they have not seen the value that you are selling. So before you start going in on, yes, I am showing the value, we're going to dive deep into what I think are a couple mistakes that you're making that you're thinking is the value and when it's not. And some tips on how to navigate those money conversations. Hi, I'm Anne Jean Pierre with the Godly Business Podcast, and I am also a coach, a sales coach with Better Saleswomen. So today we're going to talk about money and the money in the sense of selling to prospect and then being stuck on the number, right? So that's what we're going to discuss. But before we do that, I want to do some housekeeping around the subject of money. So I'm going to start with the verse, okay? The verse is found on 1 Timothy 6, verse 10. I'm not going to read the whole verse, but I'm just going to go straight to the point that I want to make, which is for the love of money is the root of all evil. So, the housekeeping that I want to get into is a lot of people are very uncomfortable with the money conversation just because to them money is evil. And from a biblical standpoint, money is not evil in itself. But the now that that's out the way, there's nothing wrong with you asking for more money. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to make more money. Okay? So if that's a hurdle for you and having the money conversation, I hope this kind of helps for you to understand that the love of money, if you're putting money first, that's the issue, not money itself. All right? So I wanted to get that out the way first off. All right, so back to our conversation. Now, the issue is you are not showing the value. And I know, and the reason why I say I know, I don't even think I think, is because I see this a lot with presentation. I used to do it. I made those mistakes in the beginning. So I know that a lot of you guys are falling into this pitfall. So what are some of the mistakes that you're making? You are not showing the value because remember, people pay for what they feel they're getting. So at the end of the day, your job is to show that the money that you're paying, you're getting way more for that, right? You're getting way more for your payout. You're getting a lot more in return for what you paid. The issue is what as a salesperson you are defining as the value. And a lot of times people fall into these three categories or they present these three things as something that is valuable to the prospect when those things are not valuable at all. So for example, right? Um, let's say you start I'm going to use myself as an example, right? And I'm trying to pitch to a client, and the value that I give them is that I have almost 2 decades in experience in sales. I have done every type of sales coming from, retail to strict commission to training people. So therefore, that's the value that I bring to the table. That's not a value, right? Your expertise is not a value to the customer, to your prospect. So you saying that you have, your years of experience, that just helps to make the prospect, customer, whatever, a little bit more willing to stay and hear you because hey, he or she may know what they're talking about, right? An emphasis on may. This person might be able to help me. That's all it is when you're saying, "Hey, I'm an expert in this field. I've been in this field for X amount of years." All it's doing is making the prospect feel a little bit more at ease to open ear to listen to what you have to say. The value is not in you, the value is not in your time. And this is a mistake that I find a lot with coaches and consultant, because they're like, hey, this is, you know, you get 15 hours of time with me to spend or whatever. That's not the value that the person is getting. That's not the value that they care about. That's something that you perceive to be a value because of your expertise, but it's not what they're looking for. So that's one of the mistakes that I find that coaches and consultants make a lot, right? The other mistake is I wrote them down, so that's what I'm looking. The other mistake that I see people do is um, they talk about the what you will get, right? So they will talk about, let's say, okay, so the I have a 7 week training course, and you will get 10 hours of this, and then you will have other people, like a group, a community. A lot of coaches and consultants love to use that word, a community that will help to support you and all of those things. And you will get, these spreadsheets and these books and blah 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 blah. That is still not the value, right? Your package was included in your package, right? Those bonuses and extra stuff that you think is a value add is not an actual value add, right? So, you saying that I get access to all the courses, right? The 16 courses that you have is not necessarily a value add in itself, right? The little package, the pieces to your package, if you will, is not a value add for your prospect. And a lot of times the mistake that people make is, hey, look at all the things that you will have, right? Or the process that we will have to go through in order for us to get you to your results. Not understanding that sometimes actually the more complicated you make it look because you're trying to fluff it up, sometimes, at least that's how it comes across to me, observing presentations and things, it actually scares a lot of people away, right? It seems complicated. So in the mind of the prospect is, this is probably not something I'm going to be able to do because it seems so complicated. So the pieces and like your package and everything that it includes actually does not bring value to your prospect. So this is why I want to take the time to go over to define what value is and what value isn't. So when you are having the conversation and you're trying to bring the value, all of those things that you're hitting on, that you're thinking is what's bringing value, is not. That's why your customers are not, your prospect and things like that are not purchasing, right? The So we talked about, you thinking that you're the expert, the pieces that's in your package and things like that. The thing is, you have to understand what value is. Value is not what you define it to be, right? Value is what your prospect perceives to be the value. So what you have to do is uncover what value, what's important to that prospect, and then to showcase how your product or service, your service can bring whatever that is to them, can answer that problem to them. So if you're looking at it like this, the value that you want to create, the value that you want to portray, because remember, at the end of the day, people buy emotionally and then justify it logically. The decision to buy is an emotional decision, right? I have to feel confident. I have to feel certain. I have to feel that, okay, this person I can trust, and I put that in air quotation, trust that they potentially know what they're talking about and they may be able to get me the result that I'm looking for. right? So at the end of the day, it's you building the feeling, showcasing, and describing through your presentation how you will get them to that result that they're looking for, right? So, how do you showcase the value in presenting your offer? One of the things you have to focus on first off is that the money that they're paying, they're going to get 3 times more, 5 times more, 10 times more than what they give you, right? So, for example, as a sales coach, let's say I charge you $1,000 for my services. And at the end of the day, the value that I will bring to you is that you will get from that $1,000 that you invested, $10,000 in return because I will train your team, right, to learn how to sell, right? So now you're going to get more revenue. You're going to close more clients. So in your mind, show through my presentation, if I do a good enough job to show you that, hey, by investing this $1,000 in the example that we're using, that you will get back $10,000, and I make it so clear, guess what? It's a good investment. It's a no-brainer. That's where you want to get your client. That's where you want to show them the value that they're getting. At the end of the day, it's all about them. What's in it for them, right? What's in it for them is not that you have 10 years of expertise. The other thing that I see a lot in some service industries is something that irks me every time I hear it. So I'm just going to talk about it. Customer service, having excellent customer service is a standard, it's a basic. Okay, so you saying that you will have excellent customer service is not a value add. That's expected, right? So those are the little things that people, when doing their presentation, present as a value that is not. So you have to be careful to not fall into that pitfall. So now that we define what value is not and have a better idea of what you need to showcase, let's talk about how you uncover what the value is for the customer. If you've watched any of my podcasts or videos before, you know one of the ways is to ask a lot of questions, right? Your job through the conversation is to figure out what their issue is, what their pain points are. The thing is, you have to understand what it is that they're looking for, what it is that's bothering them, what it is that's the biggest issue, and then find out, okay, what would resolving this problem mean to them? For example, as a sales coach, right? And let's say you have a business that teaching women about building their confidence, right? Building their confidence spiritually, physically, whatever, building their confidence, right? The thing is, you, as a coach, you speaking to that prospect, you have to understand what the problem is, what it is that their true problem is, and what would building the confidence, getting that confidence, be able to do for them. Now that they have the confidence, maybe now they can make that bold move to go and apply for that job that they definitely qualify for, but they don't have the confidence that they can pull it off, right? And now that job, getting that job will 10x their income, which means now they will be able to spend more time with their family, more time with their kids, travel more. So the thing is, you have to figure out what their pinpoints are and then figure out how in your presentation you could show them how I'm going to get you to that thing that you want, to this reality that you're trying to get to the spending more time with your family because that's what's valuable to you, right? So at the end of the day, you have to take the time to get to know your prospect and ask questions in order for you to be able to uncover their value. Now, the other aspect that we're going to discuss is What happens when you are starting your conversation and your prospect is like, okay, how much is it? This is something that I see that happens, and that people tend, like the salesperson, the coach, consultant, right? They will come and just say, oh, it's XYZ. Most of the time, what will happen is when you tell the price up front in the conversation, um, it turns the people off, right? Now, I do advise that a lot of times, and on your website and things like that, you should have, there are times where like people can tell based on them doing the consultation, right? Like when they go on your website and then they click the consultation and you ask them what price range, they're looking for, how much they're looking to spend and things like that, just so that that person can have an idea of the back of their mind, a range of what your prices are, right? So technically they shouldn't be too surprised, right, at the price. If and them scheduling the consultation with you, you ask them that question. That's why I always say it's good to have that question in your intake form, if that makes sense, just to kind of like put an anchor, like, hey, these are the prices. If you're thinking it's going to be XYZ, this is kind of like giving you an idea of where my prices are. So it's always good to do that. I recommend you do that. But if they're like, you haven't done your presentation yet, right? You're starting to have the conversation, you're not even through your offer, you're still trying to like discover what the person is and things like that, and they're like, how much is it? I've done this before to a prospect one time when I was doing like marketing, and they were like, well, how much is it? And I'm like, well, I need to get to know, a little bit more about you and what you like want, in order for me to know what your package is, what it's gonna cost. And he's like, he kept saying like, well, I just want to have an idea of how much it is. And I said, $1 million. It's like $1 million. And I'm like, yeah, since I don't know what it is that you're going to require me to do, and you want to know the price so badly, and I have no idea what you're going to want me to do, what my expectations are, what I'm just going to say $1 million, right? And then he laughed about that. But it's like, the truth of the matter is, I need to know what your problem is, right? So when your customer comes and your prospect comes and you have not gotten any information from them yet to be able to build the value, right? To position your product as the solution to their problem, and you don't know what the problem is, you I would not tell them what the price is, right? So the best way to act, like when they're like, hey, what is the price? You just tell them that, well, it depends on what it is that you know you're looking for, right? So get them to get to at least figure out what they're looking for, what their pinpoints are, in order for you to be able to, you know, present your offer based on their issue. Because at the end of the day, the main thing that you're trying to do as a salesperson is resolve their problem, is to showcase how you have the solution to their problem or perceived problem, right? So when they start with how much is it, your answer is it depends. It depends on, what it is that you're looking for. It depends on whatever, right? So it depends. Now, this is something that you have to keep in mind, depending on where that question comes up, right? Is how you're going to approach it. Like I said, if it's in the beginning, you don't know what they're looking for, like you have a vague idea, but you haven't dig deeper, asking those questions to figure out what it is that they're looking for, then that's your answer. It depends, because it does, right? So now let's say you're like in the middle to almost the end of your presentation, getting, doing that. And then they ask you, how much is it? One of two things. One, I love to give ranges, right? Because depending on where you are in the conversation, I may not be able to give you the exact, you know, package that you will, right? Especially like, let's say, um, like, let's, for example, you are in digital marketing, right? And you have different packages that could help with the person, but you don't know all of the things that they will need. Maybe package three will be the best for them. And they're like, well, I just want to have an idea of how much it is to get your services. Um, what would be the best thing for you to say in those circumstances? So those circumstances, I would suggest you give them a range, right? So it's going to cost between your middle package to your higher package. I say your middle package because you don't want to um, give them your lower package and then for them to be that an anchor in their mind that, oh, okay, I could pay at least 2 grand and get this service, where it's like most likely they're not going to get the first package, right? So it's better to give them what your middle range to your highest range. So if that is $5,000 to $10,000, you would tell them it's between $5,000 to $10,000, right? So that's that's what you would let them know. And then one of the things is saying, hey, this will cost, how much is it? Okay. um Depending on the package you choose, it will be between, $5,000 to $10,000. How do you feel about that? Right? So to get back to them, to get a gauge, if you will, of where they are mindset wise. And of course, you can get either yes, it's this, no, it's not, blah blah, and things like that. Now, if one of the things I always suggest is having the conversation, keeping in mind that most of the times you have three different type of prospect, and I put them in this category, in these three categories, because that's what my experience have been. You have the people who will always choose the cheapest option, right? It doesn't matter what you say, they will choose the cheapest option possible. They will always choose the cheapest option. Then you have those people who have the luxury mindset, right? They will always choose the highest, best thing that you have, because in their mind, um, the more it costs, the more valuable it is, and things like that. So you have that. Most people fall in the middle, where they don't necessarily want the cheapest thing, but they're also not sure about paying for the most expensive thing, right? So they kind of want something in the middle. And this is why I always say it's good to showcase three options if possible when having the conversation. Sometimes you don't have to present three options. You can just go into straight into whatever. But most of the time, it's good to offer the three options because they will choose the middle package. And that's also why I say when you are giving the range, start at your middle package and go to your highest package when you're giving the range, when the customer or prospect is kind of pushing back, like, what is the price? What is the price? Right? So that's something that you have to keep in mind in making your presentation your presentation when they are pressuring you to answer, like, what is the price. The last thing I wanted to talk about is when it gets to the point like where you're wrapping up the call, right? You wrapping up the conversation. You're about to, make your offer and things like that. Um, I personally, two things that I do is show them what we will present, like the things that you will, that whatever the package is and things like that, why I think it's the best for them, and how I think this is going to be what is going to get them the result that they want before I get them the price. So get them to buy in first to your offer before you present the price, right? So let's say in the middle of that, they're like, okay, so that sounds like a good idea, but I still need to know how much it is because I'm not sure, right? So then at that point, you could say, yes, so this package is going to be $7,000. Does that sound right to you? Okay, is that in your budget? How does that sound? So I wouldn't say, does that sound right to you? But I would say, how does that sound, right? Is that in your budget, right? Is that what you had planned on spending? Something like that. So the reason why you're asking, so now that you've made your presentation, you're asking them that to, again, based on all the values that you've built, you're getting back to them like, hey, this is the price. One, to kind of like put it back on them like, hey, I need some more feedback, right? So that it's not like, oh, it's $10,000. And then they're like, you asking them a question to get them back involved in the conversation, to kind of like avoid that quietness, which to me I love, but I know a lot of beginners have a hard time when when you say the price and the person goes quiet. You get nervous and then start backpedaling and start lowering your price because you're like, oh my gosh, the person is about to walk off. They're not gonna make the deal. They whatever. So to avoid that, you can ask them, how does that sound? So they can have a response. But to be honest, as you get better in sales, you kind of want that silence sometimes, especially in negotiating contracts and things like that, to kind of like let it sink in, see if they have questions, and not interrupt their thinking flow, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, so that's what I wanted to discuss today. Were those the conversation around money, understanding that your prospect, the secret to selling is not about the money, right? It's about building the value to the point where the prospect is um like, yes, this is a no-brainer because the value that I will be getting for this investment that I'm making is going to be way more, right? So you definitely want to address that, and you definitely want to avoid the mistake of building value around what you think is valuable when it's not, right? And then you also want to make sure when addressing the money conversation, depending on where it's asked, to be careful not to just blurt out a price, right? You have to understand that the biggest thing is you have to build the value, you have to build the demand for your product first. So not to just, say, oh, it's 5,000, and then you just lose the prospect because you haven't even had a chance to build your value. And in their mind, that sticker price is in the back of their head, right? So you want to build the value first before you answer those, the price question. So I hope that was helpful. That's everything I wanted to go over today. So if you have questions, concern, of course, let me know. I'd love to go over those things more with you. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your week. I pray that God keeps you, protects you, and of course, ask Him anything that you need. He is your counselor, He is your teacher, He is your guide. He will give you the answer that you're looking for. All right, well, you guys have an amazing day. I will talk to you guys next week.